I want to see it end fast. I don't want to see this go on for years and years. Now, President Zelensky supposedly made a statement. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying.
He goes to Europe, and a lot of our European friends puff him up. They say, you know, you're a freedom fighter. You need to keep fighting forever. Well, fighting forever with what? With whose money, with whose ammunition, and with whose lives? The president is actually taking a much more realistic perspective and saying, this can't go on forever. We can't fund this thing forever. The Ukrainians can't fight forever. So let's bring this thing to a peaceful settlement.
President Trump and Vice President Vance both commenting on Ukraine's President Zelensky, who said a deal to end the conflict with Russia is, quote, still very, very far away. It comes as the White House pauses all military aid for Ukraine following the blow-up of the rare earth minerals deal and Zelensky's contentious meeting in the Oval Office on Friday. Joining me now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, great to see you this morning. Let's get right to it. First, give us your assessment of the blowout that happened in the Oval Office on Friday.
Well, first of all, the Zelensky team orchestrated that and planned it. They didn't discuss in detail in the meeting that took place prior to the press conference in the Oval Office. It had the same people in it, but no media. And Zelensky and Yermak came into this meeting to talk to that media, the international American media, to have influence over them, to put pressure on Trump. What a strategy that is, isn't it? I mean, that is really unfortunate. And the irony of this thing that we're seeing here, at the heart of Zelensky's concerns, he wants security guarantees before there is a ceasefire. He would actually, and he told it to the president, reject the ceasefire if the president was able to get a ceasefire immediately. Zelensky would reject it if there were no security guarantees. And that's what the real issue is here. What the president is trying to say is, look, I understand we need security guarantees, and what are the security, for the people to understand, we're talking about security guarantees so that Russia is deterred and does not reattack. We know full well that even if there was a peace agreement, Maria, we know from Putin's behavior now 20-plus years that he will break that peace agreement and at a time convenient to him reattack to topple the regime. Zelensky knows that. Trump administration knows that. Europeans know that. But Zelensky wants the security guarantees to deter him in place before negotiations and a ceasefire. What the President Trump is saying, look, let's get the deal first, let's get the ceasefire, and then we'll put the security guarantees in. He even suggested at the press conference in the Oval Office, and this would have been the headline except for the collision that took place at that meeting between President Zelensky and President Trump and the Vice President. He suggested, look, this is President Trump speaking, British and French troops are going to go into Ukraine after there is an agreement as peacekeepers, and it's conceivable that we could. That should have been the headline, because President Trump has been saying for some time, I'm not going to put troops in there. But that demonstrates to me his flexibility, and he's going to put in place some tough security agreements to make certain that Putin is deterred from reattacking. He knows likely Putin probably attack while he's president, but likely he will with the next administration once President Trump is gone. That is at the heart of this disagreement. And the irony here, Maria, is I know the Trump team had as an option to get Putin to the negotiating table. They had options to increase military assistance into Ukraine and slap some tough sanctions on them to do that. Here, what's happening? We're actually pulling military aid from Ukraine to get them to the negotiating table. I mean, what a stunning turnaround this is.
Do you think that President Trump's point is, look, this is an implicit security guarantee? You've got the United States invested in Ukraine economically by digging in, literally, to those rare earth minerals. That's a deterrent in and of itself to Putin. You don't want to attack Ukraine with American companies on the ground there, so it's implicit.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're 100% right. It's obviously an economic and financial deal. It's generational. It'll take years still of exploration and mining to be able to get the financial gain out of this for both countries. It's also a political relationship because of it that ties a country much closer together. And yes, it is implied that security will have to be there to protect the investment. And Zelensky refuses to accept that. He wants to see something more tangible in the immediate I mean, he has been incredible in terms of motivating and inspiring his people and his troops. He goes to the front on a regular basis. Obviously, he's traveled the world to get assistance from him. He's good at that. But when it comes to strategic thinking, he is really missing it here. And he's putting his country at risk, unfortunately.
So let's talk about the reality of where we are now. I mean, President Trump has paused all aid to Ukraine. General, what kind of an impact is this going to have? Is he allowing Putin to win here?
Well, I think our adversaries will look at that as a positive thing for them and embolden them. If this is temporary and it's just going to last until we get Zelensky to move towards accepting the mineral deal and also reconciling with the president, not much harm will be done. But if this goes on any period of time, there's air defense systems, long-range missiles. There's more artillery ammunition on the way. There's no doubt that casualties will go up. The very thing the president is trying to prevent among the troops. And also, once those cities get exposed because they don't have adequate air defense, then the civilian casualties will go up. If this is just temporary to force Zelensky, I get that. But if it turns into something permanent, then we have major, major issues here.
Well, Russia commenting on how the U.S. is responding to the conflict, a Kremlin spokesperson said this: the new U.S. administration is rapidly changing all foreign policy configurations. This largely coincides with our vision. President Trump was asked about it. Watch this.
But Russia says that your administration's foreign policy is, quote, largely in line with their vision.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it takes two to tango, and you're going to have to make a deal with Russia, and you're going to have to make a deal with Ukraine. You're going to have the assent, and you're going to have the consent from the European nations, because I think that's important, and from us. I think everybody has to get into a room, so to speak, and we have to make a deal. And the deal can be made very fast. It should not be that hard a deal to make. It could be made very fast.
So, General, Bloomberg this morning is reporting that Putin has agreed to help the U.S. broker nuclear talks with Iran. So you really don't know what's going on in terms of President Trump's conversation with Putin, do we? And what that entails.
Well, first of all, on the premise that our foreign policy and Russia's are aligned, I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, that's quite rich. I mean, Russia has invaded a democratic sovereign country, killed 12,000 civilians, 60 to 70,000 Ukrainian and military, devastated some of their cities, took thousands of kids, kidnapped them, and moved them into Russia and committed genocide among the civilian population early in the war. I mean, and also is threatening, and seriously threatening, expansion into Eastern Europe. The United States doesn't take territory, doesn't belong to us, and we certainly don't invade democratic, independent countries. So there's nothing could be further from the truth in terms of that. Now, does the United States want to negotiate over Ukraine? And it appears that Russia does, but most of the people who've been involved in the negotiations with the Russians, the jury's kind of out in terms of whether they're serious or not. Serious in terms of willing to compromise, Maria. They've come in with very hard-line positions, which is pretty normal for them. But we still got to see if they're really willing to make a substantive deal here.
Yeah. All right. We'll be watching all of this. A lot of moving parts, General. We so appreciate getting your insight on everything. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, great talking to Maria, as always.
And to you. We didn't get to Israel, but we'll do it the next time, General. Thank you, sir. Jack Keane joining us this morning in Washington. We'll be right back.